wonderful evening to everyone, to all our viewers. Good evening. Jeremy, good evening to you.
Good evening to you, Jeff.
Yes,
Are you
and
excited for tonight's session?
of course, I'm always excited for our session, but tonight I'm extra excited. We have someone, a special guest, again from another country. All right. So, yeah, so how about you? Are you excited?
Oh, yeah, definitely, because the topic is really close to my heart. And
Okay.
the more information that I have about this topic, the
Mm-hmm.
more I am motivated to pursue growth,
Oh,
personal growth.
wow.
Yeah.
Personal growth. Yes. Okay. Before we bring in our guest, all right, I would just like to greet some people watching our program right now. Chris Hope. Okay. Good evening to you. Cassiopeia. Good evening to you. Ave Lawrence. Good evening to you. And Roel Dexter. Good evening to you. Well, our guest tonight is an international trauma sensitive mindfulness and emotion regulation teacher. Okay.
Yeah.
She's also a co founder of a project called the Mind Body Project. All right. Let's not, yes, let's not let her wait because we have so much to learn from her. All right. Without further ado, let us welcome our guest tonight from Boston, U.S. Good evening to you, Erin.
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
All right.
Love this. I feel like a celebrity.
Yes. All right. Good morning to you, Erin. It's 9 a.m. there in Boston, right?
Yes,
Yes. And all right. So how are you? How are you right now?
I'm good. I'm just waking up, and it's nice to be greeted by both of you this morning. And yeah, I was just mentioning to Jeremy that this is a good time to practice mindfulness tools. So that's what I've been doing with my mornings as well to set myself up for the day.
Mm-hmm. So
Uh-huh.
you do it every day for the past how many years?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, my practice has changed. So I like to say that there's an umbrella of mindfulness, and all the raindrops are different options for what can actually be your practice. But I would say I started to learn about the mind body connection and ways to reflect about the self probably in high school. I started having body pain in high school. And so my practice looks different, even depending on what my life looks like. But yeah, I've been trying to make it the focus of my life, I would say, for the past 8 or 9 years.
Okay.
I see.
So, Aaron, before we talk about what mindfulness and emotion regulation is, why did you go into this?
Yes.
So I guess, excuse me, the reason that I started, quite early on was because of wanting to control my thoughts and emotions a bit more, and that started in high school. But it turned into a career after I was working as an expat for startups in China and struggling with my own personal balance. And um, yeah, I started a company because basically I thought a lot of my friends and clients were also having similar challenges. And so we started to do retreats in southern China, and the company kind of grew out of that.
Oh,
Mm,
okay. So, yeah, tell us more about. I'm intrigued. I remember we talked about this a few weeks ago, but can you tell me more about your experience, your journey to what enlightenment?
No, so an interesting thing about mindfulness is that we try to make it secular. It's not related to any particular type of religion or philosophy. So the goal of what I teach and what I participate in is not enlightenment. I know you were just joking. Um,
Yeah.
but actually, it's to develop new tools to view the world. So while heck, I would be happy if I got to enlightenment, but I don't have any false pretenses that I'll get there in this lifetime. But how did I? Yeah, I think that it's been a lot of learning and understanding and doing this work and keeping up with the research and while trying to run a company and be a good teacher has been a big challenge for me, because I first started just knowing, hey, for me, yoga and kind of sitting practice and also healthy eating and healthy movement, that just feels good for me. So when I was struggling in my life, that's what I really turned to. Also connection with friends, and so I looked at those as a building point, nutrition, yoga, and connection. And then how can I build on those to offer more to different types of people? And so I went back to the US to learn some best practices in what's called contemplative sciences, the science of self reflection, and was finding that mindfulness was really taking off, especially in institutions. And that's what I'm interested in, is how do we enact change on a cultural level. And therefore, institutions are a big way to do that because they are so reflective of culture, and they also work with so many people. So I started to get more into schools and companies and hospitals to understand what their needs really were. And from there, I was noticing that a lot of mindfulness practitioners were not aware of how someone's background, their traumas, and the way that they were raised could actually come out during mindfulness programs. So well-intentioned teachers, leaders might say, hey, mindfulness works for me. Let me bring it to this group of people. And if they don't have similar trauma in their background as the group that they're teaching, the one risk is that it can bring up extreme emotions, or even the most challenging situation remind us of PTSD or previous experiences we've had in our life. And so what I wanted to know is, how do we offer these programs for more people in a safe way? And so my progression was kind of working with institutions, which I still do. I work with all three companies, hospitals, and schools. And then how do I actually train facilitators first on their own practice, and then secondarily to offer trauma-sensitive practices to other populations.
Oh,
Interesting. Okay.
great.
Okay.
Uh,
So you mentioned something. Okay. Sorry, Jeremy. No. You mentioned
Good.
something about the science of self-reflection. Well, self-reflection isn't new to me, but the study behind it is something that sparked an interest. Can you tell me more about this?
Yes, you're right, and especially being from the East in general. I shouldn't say that. Being, let's say, are you Singaporean?
No, no, no. Filipino,
You're
Chinese,
Filipino.
Filipino Chinese.
Okay, so I think in that area of the world, there is a closer connection to these practices, right? Like you all created them,
Right.
and then us over here in the labs just decided, oh wow, we don't want to practice this or believe this until we've actually researched and proven what it will do, right? So Americans
Okay.
take a long time to do experiential things. They don't want to take anybody's word for it. And so I recognize that the basis of most of these practices, firstly, it's very simple. And secondly,
Uh-huh.
it's been around for a long time. But what happened more recently, and I say within the past 25 years, is that fMRI scans, so scans of the brain, were
Yeah.
more readily available, right? So we could
Right.
actually study, before it was
Oh.
studying the effects of these practices based on what people said happened. But as we
Yes.
know, the words that come out of our mouth often have nothing to do with what's actually going on in our body.
That- Yes.
Yeah. So the fMRI said, hey, actually, we can look at what's going on in your brain. And now this whole field exploded. And we can look in deep structures in the brain, and understand actually how we rewire our patterns and our thoughts and our sensations. So I'd say the science has really, it started in these communities with monks and people whose brains were quite different from
Yes.
maybe the average person's brain, so we could really see what were the differences. But now, there's research being done on all types of people, safely and effectively, to see what different types of practices affect different types of people, right? There's so many variables. And so how do we know,
Uh,
firstly, what type of person this is, what kind of experiences they've had? And then once we know, actually, mindfulness practices can be a little bit like a prescription, because certain ones will affect us in different ways, and certain ways of thinking will help different people differently.
okay.
Mm.
So these studies prove that that there are positive effects to self-reflection and mindfulness, right?
I would say we can say there's effects. Whether
All
we
right.
consider them positive or negative is
Uh-huh.
based on culture, like, so
Oh, okay.
are we able to learn more about how we've been socialized, how our reactions are, why we might be
Yeah.
triggered by a certain environment? Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Now, how we deal with that and how we can change our brain, might be different based on culture, because a lot of people think mindfulness is about always being calm and peaceful. And I say no. A true mindfulness practice is experiencing the realm of human emotion and not being scared of any of them, right? So if we have overwhelming anger, shame,
Yeah.
fear, it's
Mhm.
like, let that come up so then we can ask questions realistically about why and how did I get there? And then if I want to, yes, I can change that. But sure, there's a lot of science showing all sorts of different effects and benefits to individuals.
All right. Jeremy, you wanted to ask something, right?
Well, yeah, Jeff. Well, earlier, Erin talked about trauma, PTSD, and of course, self reflection. Now, from my belief, in order for me to get over trauma and PTSD, I should be able to self reflect. Is that correct?
Okay,
And
so let's.
if I self reflect, oh, sorry, if I self reflect, then what if I just get stuck there in the past and not be able to come up with my compensatory strategies to overcome the PTSD and my trauma?
So what I'll say is that mindfulness practices are complementary to trauma healing. So they're one of kind of a triangle of therapies that can be used to support those traumas. So one would be mindfulness and embodied practices. Then there's somatic healing. So how do we actually
Mm.
more go into the physical body and change the way that things are connecting and sending signals, and then also talk therapy. So the thing that happens is, if a, let's say, a highly traumatized person goes into a mindfulness environment, you're right, they might actually be healing from their traumas. They might be re-experiencing them again, unless they have that support network. But what becoming a trauma informed teacher does is allow you to safely lead practices that won't put anyone over the cliff, let's say. The whole point is that the practices that we're using, the way that we're speaking, the safety of the environment that we're creating is not actually triggering anyone. But
Anything.
it can give us insight into those people who might be struggling with more than we know. So, for example, if sitting and noticing our breath is already causing agitation for a particularly young student because they don't have such a barrier to filtering, their reaction, then we might say, oh, hey, maybe this person can have a relationship with the counselor, and otherwise we might not have known that, and it would have been buried and repressed for many, many years until it exhibits quite later in life as different kind of behaviors that might be detrimental to themselves and others. So that's one really important thing, is like, it's early intervention for children. And also, um, to teach mindfulness, I really um, require that any kind of facilitator has their own personal mindfulness practice, so they understand how long it takes and how sensitive we have to be to moving in a different direction. But I see again mindfulness as one tool to healing trauma, and we can do a lot of the work by ourselves. But then, depending on the levels, we need to check in with professionals, because even doing mindfulness can lead us to some irrational thought patterns if we're not checking in about how we're changing along the way.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
Yeah, I think we were very excited in getting to know more about mindfulness. So I
Mindful.
think, yeah, let's go back to what really mindfulness is and
Sure.
what is emotion regulation.
So yeah, let's start from the beginning. So the flavor of mindfulness that I teach is related to MBSR, mindfulness-based stress reduction, that was popularized in the UMass system up in this area in Massachusetts by John Kabat-Zinn. And the basic definition is paying attention in the present moment in a particular way without judgment. So basically, that means the present moment is not ruminating about the past or worrying about the future. It's noticing sensations that are happening in the mind and the body in this moment. And then the non judgment piece is to let, just like we were discussing, the fullness, the range of human experience and emotion come up. So instead of saying, I'm very angry about a particular situation, that's a good or bad way to be. It's just labeling anger, noticing where I feel that in my body, and then perhaps we make some connections later to why. So every emotion and every experience is equal and valid under this model. They're all allowing us to be a scientist with our body and our life experience to ask why. And um, additionally, we aren't. No, I lost. I lost my train of thought because I was thinking, let's do a little practice and give an example with the three of us
Sure,
and see what we
sure.
notice, in
Yeah.
this present
Oh,
moment.
yeah.
Okay. All right. So just you're already in a seated position. And just notice, can you wiggle down your sits bones, those two bones in your bottom, into the chair beneath you, and plant your soles of your feet on the ground. Let your shoulders relax. Just notice your core and your belly holding you up. And you can gaze down at one point on the ground beneath you and listen to the sound of the singing bowl, bringing yourself out of the past, out of the future, just into this moment. So begin to notice your feet, let them soften and open on the ground beneath you. Notice your ankles and your shins, knees. Noticing your right thigh, your left thigh, and a point just beneath your belly button. Begin to notice anything in your chest. Maybe it's rising and falling at a certain pace. Noticing any temperature that you feel in the chest. Any sensations of tightness or comfort. And stay for a few moments noticing what's happening in my chest. The mind begins to wander. Bring it back to the sensations in the chest. Noticing the heart rate, Seeing if you can feel the beat of the heart down into the fingers and into the toes. Swallowing to relax the throat. Noticing sensation from the right arm down into the right fingertip. Noticing the left arm, left shoulder, down into the left fingertip. And bringing awareness to the muscles on the face. Maybe softening the eyebrows and the jaw. Belly rises, I am. Belly falls, here. Just taking a moment to listen to the three closing sounds of the singing bowl. And you can open your eyes and join us back in class. So,
And
Ah,
we're back.
what did you notice?
ah, well, I felt good. I was able to notice what's happening within my body. I was able to pay attention uh, to forgotten or unnoticed parts of the body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's it's a lovely metaphor for how we live our life, right? We compartmentalize. So something hurts or something gives us a lot of information, and
Hmm.
depending on our personality, we might numb that out, kind of push it away. Okay, I need to get through the day, or we deep dive into it and maybe lose focus. And so doing this is called a body scan. We're just simply scanning the body and saying, hey, I'm all here. I'm giving you all this information about your life and how you're responding to things around you. Now, it's your choice if you want to listen.
Great.
So yeah, and I did that too.
Y-
You got the singing bowl
Yeah.
here. Um,
A-
so
And
sorry.
I've seen singing bowls. I don't know. I mean, I've been when I go around different places, most especially in temples, I
Yeah.
see singing bowls. I mean, are they really used for that particular purpose, like for meditation, for mindfulness?
Yeah. So the vibration. So they're used for a couple different reasons. One is that one way to meditate is to find an anchor, right? So we actually kind of practice using a few different anchors. One was sensation in the body. So the mind begins to wander, we bring it back to sensation. Mind begins to wander, bring it back to sensation. Another one was just the chest. So one particular part of the body. And then another thing that the singing bowl does is it helps to be used as an anchor. Some people like sound and vibration as their anchor because maybe that's a better entry point than the body. So you can even put on music with different types of tones and help work on focus and mind control through bringing your presence into a relationship with that music. So yeah, it's lots of different purposes, but also the vibration,
Yeah.
is deeply soothing to us because we're vibrating on a cellular level all the time.
Yes.
And so when
Yeah.
we can find something that kind of like meets us where we are, it almost
Mm-hmm.
helps us slow down and find a place of
Oh.
comfort.
How
Yeah,
Yeah.
often,
Oh.
how often, Erin, should we do this? Should it be on a daily basis or?
as much as feels good to you. So what I like to say is that if you don't look forward to your mindfulness practice, it's not your practice, right?
Hmm.
So if and healing and also moving through life, it comes in different forms. So one day a body scan might seem really appealing to you, And another day, it seems like the last thing that you want to do. So, our body is so wise, and our subconscious is probably more geared for health than our conscious mind. So I just say, just check in. Like if you can just sit and say, do I want to do a body scan? And then notice if your body says yes or no, and allow yourself to do that. So as much as it feels good and keeps you on the path that you want to be on, do it. And if the body scan is not your tool, then that's why my company is all about offering different practices, because I find that sometimes we think, oh, sitting on the meditation cushion, that's it. And like there's lots of different variations and ways we can move our body or still our mind that might appeal to us differently.
Okay. Should I do it with a partner?
Okay.
That's such a good question. When you're getting started, it's always easier, and I say easier, actually safer to do in community. So even if it's on a call, it's just like going to a doctor that you trust or not, and how much you get out of that experience. So finding someone you trust to lead you through these practices is the best way to start, because just by being led by someone, your subconscious will relax more. So you're not in this thinking part of the brain, right? The frontal lobes. You're actually relaxing out of those, and you'll get more out of the experience if somebody else is taking care of you.
I
And
see.
then even doing it with a friend is good for accountability, right? So if you say, we're going to sit here for 20 minutes and we're going to do a body scan, then you're much more likely to complete it if you know that somebody else is doing the same thing.
Okay.
Okay. So mindfulness and emotion regulation go hand in hand, right?
Exactly. So I
Okay.
like to think, sorry, did you want to add something else?
Yeah. I guess my follow up question is that you mentioned earlier that mindfulness isn't really about being calm all the time. Okay. You have to feel the range of emotions, and you are being mindful when that happens. Like you are able to label happiness, sadness, or anger, right? So I guess my question is, uh, when you control your reaction, what does it do to you? Because some people react or respond differently, right?
Right.
So what do you do to your brain? What do you do to your mind when you try to control probably a reaction, an explosion of anger or shouting?
Yes. So that's a really good and really complex question. So I'm going to try to answer
Yeah,
part by part, and then let me know if I
sure.
missed anything. So one of the primary researchers that I follow is named Dan Siegel, and he's an integrationist. His approach basically says that disease is disintegration, so not feeling the fullness of these experiences, where health is integration. So the first step is we need to feel these things to be able for our mind and our body to know how to integrate them. So if we're pushing everything away, we're never giving ourselves the chance to learn to understand these emotions. So for example, you think about like anger management, right? And if you tell someone with a lot of anger never to be angry, that anger doesn't go away in the body. It just gets tighter and tighter and more like a pressure gauge that's going to explode.
Yeah.
So, what mindfulness practices do is first bring awareness to what causes anger. What does anger feel like in my body? And then, as it's coming up, we can experience anger without exploding and derailing us, right? So, the mindfulness practice just brings us aware of what's happening in my environment, how is that affecting my body, and then how is that anger coming up? So that's the first part, is that just allows us to get curious rather than completely overwhelmed. Because if we are overwhelmed by strong emotions, then we're potentially doing things to hurt ourselves, to hurt other people, and we're never getting to the root of the issue because it's too much too fast. So yes, exactly. They're related because mindfulness gives us a way to look at not only uncomfortable emotions, really great ones too. I always start in a classroom with kids by saying, Raise your hand if you have trouble sleeping. And, everyone has experience with that at some point in their life. Yeah, exactly. Adults, kids, we've all had trouble sleeping.
Everyone.
Yes. Now, for adults, the reasons are often very different from kids. Kids will say, I'm too excited, like I just want to get the next day. I don't want to take time to sleep. I want to play a video game. I want to see my friends. I want to talk to teachers. And so that's actually an overexcitement, which is still an emotional regulation challenge because these kids aren't sleeping and then, they're worthless the next day or their brain's not developing. So it's both sides of the spectrum. So we can use mindfulness also to say, okay, what do you need to do before bed that allows you to sleep? And then I never say, I'm never prescriptive with it. I'm never saying you have to sleep. It's just an option. If you try these things before bed, like a science experiment, then how does that result in your sleep? And then if you change and try some different things, how does that affect your sleep? And then as a kid, as an adult, you just have that choice and you get to decide how you want your morning to be. So the point of a mindfulness practice is not to say that you have to sleep and you have to wake up early. It's just to know which parts of your life will lead to deeper sleep or more restless sleep, and then you can choose. And so that's the same metaphor for emotions. It's not saying you can be angry, you can be jealous, but if you decide that you don't want that in your life, okay, then we take a step back and say, well, why do I feel that way? And maybe do I want to change who I am as a person or the environment that I'm in to have a different outcome?
All right, that really answers. That really gave me a great answer. Yes,
Okay.
I've been, it has been in my mind for for the past few months, no, and well, right now I really got a great answer. Yes,
Thank
Jeremy,
Which
you were
one? Which one,
so
Jeff, are you talking about?
about being mindfulness and relating
Uh,
it to being calm.
oh,
There has always been, an equation that, being mindful is always being calm, when we see it in movies, you know. But then reality is that you just have to feel your range of emotions. Erin, you mentioned a name of an author earlier, someone you follow. Can you mention that again?
Sure, it's Dan Siegel and actually his wife,
Oh,
Tina Bryson.
mm-hmm.
And the book that I most highly recommend for parents and teachers is called The Whole Brain Child. So it's actually related to the title of your program.
mm,
Yes.
Um, and it's using foundational neuroscience to interact with kids in a more positive way. So,
Oh,
like, the best example I have of this is since we're talking about teachers, is meeting people where they are. So teachers always struggle with transitions. Why? Because
right,
humans struggle with transitions, right? It's hard to have the brain up here go from down here, and it's hard to go from down here to up here. And what we're
right,
asking ourselves to do on a daily basis is to go like this. Now you need energy. Now you need to relax. Now you need to be hungry. Now you need to not be hungry. Just like, and so when you can regulate that at your own will, it's a power. But getting there is challenging. And so, what I suggest that parents and teachers do is to first meet kids where they are. So, you're coming in from recess. And what's the typical thing that teachers do when kids come in from recess? They say, sit at your desk and be quiet. Well, the
yes,
brain is like, I don't want to do that at all. Like, I'm just up here and you told me I could run around and have fun. Now,
yeah,
how am I going to get to there really quick? And so I would suggest that teachers look at the bodies and at the language and mirror what the kids are doing. So if the kids are up here, then you be up here. Make yourself big, like jump around, get excited, and then slowly transfer where you want them to go. So it's like, okay, we're doing jumping jacks. Now we're just gently rocking the body. Okay, now we're slowly sitting into our seat, but we're still tapping a little bit, and you have a few minutes to notice where your breath is, notice where your body is. And so what we're doing is saying it's okay to be up here, but we're going to all transform and move together. And same thing about, going from a low to a high state. There's a really good comment in the live comments from Joanne,
Oh
and
Yeah,
yes, let's put it here.
yeah, and it said this topic reminds me of that we sometimes feel the mind is still active and willing to push further, but the body needs its break today. So doing a body scan in solitude and in community, and that mindfulness does not mean being calm and peaceful all the time, but more like being aware of reality and acting upon it accordingly. So thank you so much for saying in a few sentences exactly what we just took a long time to explain.
thank
Um,
you, Dawn.
Thank you.
She's a good friend of ours.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's
thank
what
you,
We
Dawn.
Yeah, thanks, Doan, for watching, and thanks for giving that comment. I really appreciate that. Yeah, and yeah, I just searched. That's Dan Siegel, right?
yes,
Yeah.
Dan Siegel.
Okay.
Siegel.
Yeah, I'll
Does
be
he
checking
also,
his book.
yeah,
Yes,
does he
Jeremy, you
also,
were saying.
yeah, Jeff, does he also mention Ned Herman when it
Oh,
comes to the whole brain? Or
I guess so. I guess that's part of his study because whole brain was developed by Ned Herman. But I guess Dan Siegel is more of the application already to learning.
Exactly. And it's
Yeah.
actually, that book is great because there's actually a refrigerator um, resource guide from the book. So it's like, okay, we all read these books. And then in the moment, it's like, wait, my kid is freaking out right now, but what was that strategy? And, it's just gone. So I have actually a good friend that puts those 12 strategies right on the refrigerator. She looks at
Uh-huh.
them every time she gets food. And so it's an easier application when the actual moment arises.
All right, great.
all
Oh,
right.
okay. Before I move on to my next question, I'd like to invite all the viewers right now. If you do have questions, if you do have comments, just type it in.
Type,
So,
type it down.
yeah, just write it down on the chat box. We will read it, and we will be glad to answer your question. So, Erin, here's my next question. You earlier you mentioned that you have a range of products in your training company, right?
Yes.
So, can you tell us more about your training company, what you teach, how people can get in touch with you? What do they get when they train?
Absolutely. So the main way that my company is different, let's say, than lots of mindfulness researchers or organizations is that we're very experiential. So that's why I really appreciate you guys were already willing to try something with me
Of
because I
course.
try not to talk, but to offer experiences almost immediately. So at least 50% of the time in our programs, you're going to find that you're doing something. You're journaling, you're moving, you're sitting with your breath, you are engaging in a mindful conversation with another individual because we need to practice. That's where I think all of this stuff is great. We can read books, we can intellectualize it, but until we're
Right.
practicing it, we still have the brains of 7-year-olds, right? So we need to become adults who have actually embodied these experiences. So I offer a lot of workshops, 6-week online programs, and then to get a taste of it, to see how this is transforming the mind body connection. NDSR says it takes a minimum of 8 weeks, 2 times a week to practice this stuff to show a minimum rewiring of the brain. So I try to offer a lot of 6 and 8 week programs so that you can at least have a taste of what you get when you move further along with these practices. And then once someone kind of gets familiar with me and our facilitators, I have a 2-step program to become a trauma sensitive facilitator. And so step 1 is 30 hours of personal mindfulness training. And then the completion of that is you take these mindfulness tools and you apply it to whatever situation you might work in. So whether you're a nurse, a teacher, a leader, you're going to take, let's say, a meeting or a course that you've done before, and you're going to say, how would I now offer this with some experiential tools? How would I bring in some awareness of breath? How would I talk about very casually what's going on in someone's bodies as part of this, very serious work process? And then step 2, once someone is a mindfulness practitioner is to learn another 30 to 50 hours of trauma theory. So how do we experience trauma as children? How does that manifest as adults? What do my traumas look like and come out in my life? And then how do I learn to use my language and my tools in an environment to make it safe for the most traumatized people and to allow the least to go further in their own work? So that's kind of the progression is, smaller workshops, longer 6 to 8 week trainings, and then finally more complete trainings that give people the confidence and the skills to lead this in their real life.
So when you were in China before, did you already have these tools?
Yeah, so I actually I got really serious into my yoga practice in Beijing, and I developed my own daily practice there for a while. But then when I wanted to learn more about the neuroscience and the research, that was when I went back to the U.S. and started to look at things outside of a yoga and meditation approach, but more in secular mindfulness. So we call it like mindful movement or mindful awareness rather than make sure that there's no real philosophy tied to it. It's just how can I learn more of these practices? So yes and no. I did it mostly through yoga in China, but then I went back to the US and I started to learn about trauma sensitive facilitation, somatic experiencing, and a bunch of these different tools that we have centers for across the US.
All right, great. Um, we have some comments here.
Yeah.
Let me just. This is this is from Cassiopeia. This is
Okay.
very relevant, very interesting. It reminds us to take time to be in touch with ourselves, finding time to live in the here and now. And another one from her. This also allows us to spend time with ourselves so that we will be able to be there for others.
Yes.
Okay.
That reminds me of one of the first tools that I teach in any introduction program are compassion meditations. And what we do is first we send kindness and support to ourselves because we can't pour from an empty cup. So if we're giving away and helping, we're without filling ourselves up, we're going to find
Yeah.
ourselves depleted. We're going to find ourselves burnt out from work, leaving our jobs, all of that. So a mindfulness practice first starts with the self. And then from there, when we truly give ourselves what we need, then yeah, that's the only way that we can be there for others.
Oh, so what are there strategies or different ways that you can give to yourself? I mean, do you spend your me time? Do you spend buying stuff for yourself? Are there any strategies?
Sure.
Exactly.
So,
And if I am to get into this, where should I begin?
Yeah.
How should I? How could I start? Right?
so I would say my advice is in two different ways. First is, Jeremy, what's the biggest challenge in your life? What's causing you the most struggle?
My, myself, I guess.
Okay, and how does that look? Because most people start with the thing that's bothering them the worst. So whether it's body pain, sleep, um, a relationship with another person, whatever's motivating you to make a change, that's your entry point. Because if you start with something light, it's like, oh, I eat kind of healthy, but mostly I've got my eating under control. Then that's probably not going to give you enough motivation to commit to changing your brain, changing your habits. So I say start with the part of your life that's most challenging for you. Um, but underpinning all of this is really important is that we can't really develop a mindfulness practice until we have some basic healthy habits. So until we have a bit of exercise in our life, until we're eating healthy, um, and then at least sleeping relatively well,
Yeah.
this stuff is not going to take hold. So if those kind of building blocks are not in place, that's where I would start, but they can always happen in conjunction. I know for myself, like I've had struggles with all of those, diet, eating,
Yeah.
um,
Sleeping.
sleeping. Yes, exactly. So they come in tandem. You don't have to get one completely sorted to start your practice, but they're going to support each other.
Great.
Okay.
Thanks for that. At least Jeremy, we know where to start. Okay.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Let's start eating healthy.
Yeah, there
Well,
you
with sleeping, I'm fine with that.
What was that again? What was that?
Eating healthy.
Oh, okay.
No
All
judgment,
right.
right, Maria? If
Yeah.
you make this healthy, it can be healthy.
Oh, here's another one from Cassiopeia. Uh, we find it a habit of finding time for ourselves. Yeah, I agree. We have to make it a habit to find time for ourselves.
Right. And that's
Uh,
what I
yeah,
said in the beginning is if you don't look forward to your practice, it's not your practice. So just starting with what's the one thing per day that I'm going to do for myself and commit to it. Because we commit to so many other things, other
yeah.
people, other obligations. But the real start of a mindfulness practice is to find one thing that you want to do for yourself and do it every day.
And it's best to do it in the morning. I think. I mean, do it first
Uh-huh.
thing in the morning for yourself,
For
and
me,
get
I've found that
yeah.
over the years that
Mhm.
helps settle my mind the most. But again, it's just different entry points, right? So if somebody feels like mornings is when I
Uh
feel
huh.
terrible. But at night,
Oh, okay.
maybe I could create some space to do this. That's fine.
Okay. So
By the
it's different. Yeah.
Yeah. By the way, Erin, I hope you don't mind. Let's go into emotion regulation, right? Because when you talk about stress, the model of stress, right? There are four contributors to stress. So it could be time, it could be people, it could be events, external events, and yourself, right? What if you, for example, because of this pandemic that we're having right now, and you are at home, right? And you can't go out, and you have to be with certain people at home, and you are not comfortable to be with them, and since you have limited space, then you can't really avoid the friction that you are having. I'm not saying this is my situation, okay? I'm just hypothetically speaking, but
Sure.
it may happen or it might be happening
Right.
right now to other people.
Yes.
Okay. So, how do I regulate my emotions and be mindful of my emotions? Because, of course, I want to be happy. I want to be okay.
Yeah.
But what about the other person? How do I be an enigma to this person?
Yeah. That's such a good question. And I think it's very relevant to what a lot of people are facing right now. So the first thing that I want to clarify is whether you're uncomfortable or unsafe, right? Because if you are truly unsafe in a situation, then you're not going to strong will your way out of that. If somebody is potentially causing any kind of emotional or physical abuse versus, we have some tension, it's important to remember that getting out of a potentially harmful situation is the most important way to start with that, right? So if we're talking about kind of day-to-day family tensions where no one's being at risk of being abused, but there are challenges and there's stress, then the first thing that we do is still we carve out that space for ourselves, but maybe we have to be better communicators about it. So to say to the people around us, this is what I'm doing, when I'm doing it, and why. And so this is going to help me for whatever reason, remain more calm, be there for you all more, and to be really clear about what your needs are. And I know figuring out those needs can be complicated because sometimes you set a boundary and you say, hey, I need to do meditation in the morning. And then they see you sleeping in and they're like, well, I'm watching the kids because you said that you need to do your meditation, but you're actually sleeping. And it's complicated. But knowing that okay, I made a mistake. Maybe that's not what I need. Maybe I need more time at night. And it's just this constant ebb and flow of communication to getting your needs met and balancing the needs of other people. So for sure, it's going to be messy, but it starts with that self-care. Then it starts with trying different things because the first couple of things that we try and setting those reasonable expectations. I'm going to try something as a mindfulness practice. Just because I try this for 2 weeks doesn't mean I'm going to succeed, but I will learn something from it. and I'm going to share what I learned with you, so you can support me in this process, and vice versa, being available for other people who are trying something, want to learn something. But I think that having that intention, having the awareness of what's going on, and then talking about it and being able to be wrong, it at least starts that conversation and that path towards something different. And I especially think that we should share these ideas with kids, because
Yeah.
we assume like, oh, this is a parent thing or this is a teacher thing. The beautiful part of all of these practices is that they're for every age, so we can involve anyone at any level in what bringing awareness back to the chest and watching the breathing, scanning the body for pain, using a compassion meditation. Like, 6-month-old kids, I know, I've been around them when these kind of programs happen. They respond to it as well. So the nice thing is that it can be a family oriented activity, but the tools and the entry points are definitely going to change.
All
All
right.
right.
Thank
Okay.
you,
Yeah.
Erin. And
That's
Cassiopeia, find your own space. And what was that, Jeff? If you could
it's
close
here. Yeah. Find your own space and appreciate where you are. Respect of your space and others' space. Uh, here's from Dawn again. Uh-oh to eating healthy. Haha. Does it also help to have a cheat day as part of mindfulness? This is not just for diet. I'm referring to taking a break from your usual grind, like not being as busy as or being extra busy, giving in to an online find or sneaking out for a quick resto takeout or meetup. How does this help us in a healthy way?
in a healthy way.
Yeah, that's a great question. So what I always say is that any practice can be your mindfulness practice. So mindful wine drinking is possible as long as you know what inputs give you what outputs, right? So if cheat days help you be a happier person, then go for cheat days. But be aware, is a cheat day making the rest of the other days actually more difficult and your life more of a struggle, right? So just try both. Try with cheat days, try without cheat days, and see what works for you.
For me, every day it's a cheat day.
I knew you'd say that. Well, yeah.
Oh,
Here's another one from
for us, Jeff, it's a cheat night,
Cheat
right?
Night. Yeah.
Cheat night.
Here's one from Cassiopeia. Mindfulness allows us to be sensible of ourselves and becoming sensitive of others. Be a blessing, find peace inside out. Yes, thank you for that, Cassiopeia. We've reached the end of the line again, Jeremy.
Oh
Time moves so fast when you're having fun, when you're
yeah,
learning, when people are, joining us. It's always fun to have that conversation with our guests and with the people watching us. So, Erin, maybe last few tips, especially for those who are going through a transition right now from the traditional classroom teaching to online setup.
Okay, yeah, that's a good one. So I think it's easy to become more sedentary during this time. And so for me, my mindfulness tool during COVID is to know how I'm going to move my body in a way that makes me feel good every day. And that could be as simple as walking or stretching to doing something that allows me to sweat. But I would say during this time, it's going to be easier to be sedentary. So we've got to use our mindfulness and that smart brain that we have to say, this is a challenge that's coming up. So what am I going to do to tackle it head on? And then in terms of teaching online, like I think what you guys are doing is great. Welcoming people into community, learning something,
Thank
getting
you.
curious, and creating a safe space. Also knowing that if connection is a challenge, then how are we finding ways to bring more of that in? And one thing that we have, I can share on our website, I've listed some COVID specific resources, and these are for building community, finding movement, and those two things in particular that are free and available on the internet and then hopefully in real life beyond these times. that I personally use, like every day. And I'm also happy to share with other people.
Please invite them to your website so they can see your articles there.
Do I write that in somewhere or?
I can type it in for you.
Okay.
Just let me know what it is.
It's
Yeah.
themindbodyproject.com.
Oh, that's
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
www.themindbodyproject.com.
Yes.
Okay. Well, let me put it there. Uh, the
Oh, perfect.
Mind Body Project. Yeah, it's there. So
Yes.
when people go there, they can get your what do you call this? They can read your articles there.
Yes.
What else can they expect to see there?
They can find resources for their own personal health. Lots of free courses created by me, but also thought leaders in the field, um, and examples of even how to. Oh, a full outline of our trainings. So what's in the training and how you can start that process. We'll be doing another training in July. So if anybody's interested, they can contact me and learn more about that. And then, always my contact information. I'm more than welcome to answer emails or jump on a quick call to talk about personal or institutional challenges. So, like, how can these practices be more brought into my school, company, hospital, um, to find, that space between stimulus and response where we have our choice to grow.
Great. Thank you, Erin, for your time. So, Jeremy, what did you get tonight?
Well, I learned a lot of things, especially when it comes to cheat days. Nah, kidding aside, it really is. It really is all about us. We start with ourselves in order for us to become better when it comes to responding to a certain stimuli. So, let's say a relationship, maybe a business deal, or with our students, for example. So, in order for us to get the positive consequence that we want, we have to be mindful of how we respond and how we are, our state, I guess.
And we have to
Yeah,
practice, right? Really practice. So we can only talk about it and read about it so much, but we got to get with some people that want to do some exploring together and then start actually playing around with our minds and our bodies and then see how that allows us to change who we are as people.
Yeah.
great.
What about you,
So,
Jeff?
yeah. Well, in my case, it's that mindfulness isn't always about being calm. It is about um, being aware of your range of emotions and trying to see what triggers, and then so that you can label them, you can feel them, and you'll be able to catch them at the right time.
Yeah.
So that was my biggest takeaway for tonight. And here are some more comments from our viewers tonight. If you have your comments, if you have your reflection, just type it in and we'll read it. Uh, wow, congratulations. You did great, guys. Yippee. It's a very productive night with you guys. Very worthwhile. Thank you for being so generous with time and input. Uh, good evening. Thank you for reminding us that we need to think of ourselves sometimes. Yes. Um, oh, here's a question from Madonna. When is the best time to do mindfulness exercises, and what are the indicators that you are no longer in this state? Hmm. I guess in the mindful state.
Mindful state. Yeah.
Yeah, so this is a great question about, and this is why I love the practice so much because it's so personal. So I would ask you, when is the time that you want to do it? I would say long time meditators, they do like to get up in the morning because the way that we start our day sets the tone. So the way that our brain is wired is that however the inputs that you give it, they're going to flow, right? So if we give slow and steady inputs in the morning, it's more likely that our brain is going to pick up on those cues and go for that kind of state throughout the day. If the first thing that we do is pick up our phone and toggle between 20 different things, then our brain immediately notices, oh, this is what I need to do more of throughout the day. And then you might notice we're toggling more throughout the day. Same thing with the first foods we put in our body in the morning. If we start with sugars, the body's going to crave more sugars. If we start with something like protein or something that gives us, balanced energy, then the body learns, I want more balanced energy, right? So it's like we plant that seed for whatever we want to grow. But we all have different lives. We all have different entry points. So start with what feels good to you. I know a lot of times for me, the indicators that I'm not in the state is that I wind up with energy that I wasn't expecting. So I wind up unable to sleep at night when I was hoping I might be tired, or I end up depleted in the middle of the day looking for coffee or sugar when I wanted to get through the workday with enough energy. So to me, I'm not checking in with my body all day long when I end up in a place that I wasn't expecting or that I didn't want to be.
Great, great answer. I learned something there again. Thank you for that, Erin.
Yeah.
Here's a couple more. Thank you so much for letting my mind relax and feel good. Oh, thank you, Rose, for joining us through that meditation earlier.
So,
And here's one from Chris Hope. Thank you for sharing. I will try to do what I have heard and hopefully I will apply with myself. All right. So, Erin, thank you so much for your time. To all the viewers, please visit the website of Erin. There are plenty of articles there, plenty of resources on mindfulness. Erin, thank you so much. Hopefully, we can invite you again. Thanks for sharing your knowledge. Thanks for teaching everyone tonight.
thanks for
Yes,
having
thank
me.
you.
And do you want to end with 3 deep breaths?
Oh, sure. Okay,
Okay.
sure.
So as you go off to dreamland, just find a comfortable spot and noticing the belly rising, belly falling. And as we take in our first breath, imagining allowing everything that happened today to be in the body. And as we exhale, let it all go. Our next deep breath, imagine inviting in one thing that we want to work on tomorrow. And as we exhale, let it go. And on our last inhale, being right here in this moment, noticing what it's like to be human today. Thank you all very much for having me.
Thank you,
Thank,
Erin.
thank you, Erin, and have a great day to you. All
Yes,
right.
have a
Have a
good
nice day. I'll send
Have
you
a
a message. Thank you very much, and thank you for your generosity.
yes.
exactly. Thank you for
Thank
everything.
you. Bye.
Bye-bye. All right, Jeff.
All right. So, relax na tayo. All right.
Uh,
To all the viewers right now, try practicing the
mindful
meditation. All right, and
meditation.
mindfulness.
Yeah,
All
paano yun,
right,
Jeff?
so,
Yung bowl.
huh?
Wala ako nung bowl.
Wala.
I don't have
Oh
a bowl.
my. Let's just try to be creative and resourceful. All right. So
Yeah.
okay, Jeremy, good night to you. Good night,
All right. Good
everyone.
night to everyone, and see you, Jeff.
Uh,
Bye bye.
nice.